Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the Security Squawk podcast. I'm Brian Horning, one of your co-hosts. I'm here with Reginald Andre, Ryan O'Hara, and Randy Bryan. How are you, gentlemen? Welcome to another week, another show.
Doing great. Super duper hot down here in Texas now. I'm wishing I was up there around PA, New Jersey area, man.
That's a lie. It's cold up here. I'm still wearing a jacket.
We got a high of 80 actually today.
Oh boy. Right, I was in your way the other day. The guy was telling me that you guys haven't seen the sun, or at least in Chicago area. I gotta imagine you got the same weather.
The last couple of days have been sunny, but prior to that, it has been a while.
Like 3 weeks. All right, guys. So welcome to the show. This is our podcast where we educate you about cybersecurity and what you can start doing to protect yourself. We break it down at a business level, not at a technical level. We try to stay out of the tech, although it requires us to kind of explain things sometimes because it is tech. This really is for everybody because this is becoming a huge problem. We have 5 ransomware attacks active right now that we know about that are in the news. We're going to cover those today, but remember, we only hear about 10% of the attacks that are out there. So 90% of these attacks you never hear of. You're not going to know about them. Businesses aren't going to disclose them. They just kind of come and go. And they all go down different ways. But we can learn from these ones that are in the news. And the only thing that we do on this show for a fee is we ask that you share our show. Share it out to your friends and family on social media and whatever podcast platform you might download us on. They probably all have some kind of a rating system. If you could drop a 5-star review and let everybody know, take 15 seconds and let everyone know why this is a worthwhile podcast, we really appreciate it. So, guys, let's just jump right into it. We don't have much time today. We all have tight schedules, so we're going to try to get through this content as quick as we possibly can. And I thought this was amazing. First off, this ransomware group is absolutely on fire. And it's Conti, and they're at it again, and I'm sure they're probably behind these other ones we're going to talk about too. But Conti ransomware attack prompts Costa Rica into national emergency. We currently have a $15 million. The U.S. the government has a $15 million bounty on the Russian-based hacking group as more and more businesses struggle to combat these attacks. So, Randy, why don't you take the lead on this for us? What's going on in Costa Rica? What is Conti doing? What do they want?
Yeah, so basically it was a ransomware on the national computer systems. It happened actually several weeks ago, almost a month ago, back around April 18th. It has shut down their tax collecting services. It shut down their ability to pay public employees. It's also shut down their export and customs computers that are over those areas of their country. So they've basically declared a state of emergency because they don't have a way to pay their employees. They don't have a way to collect money. They don't have a way to oversee the exports, the customs, which is another source of money. The ransomware attack, Conti leaked, according to this article, leaked 670 gigabytes of data that they've stolen from the country. So basically, they don't even have they don't have any kind of digital monetary services. They're basically screwed right now at this point. So the new leader of the country has declared a state of emergency as of Sunday over this. The U.S. government's involved somehow in helping them. It's a pretty bad attack.
So, did you mention the ransom amount?
It's $10 million is what I read in the article.
Which I got to imagine a country like that can pay that, but I guess they're not.
I don't know. That's crazy. Because I read that and I was thinking, wow, I was thinking it'd be more like 10 billion. 10 million, they should be able to pay it.
Yeah, well, it could be legal reasons too. They may not be able to do it because of laws. I mean, could that be construed as funding terrorism, right? And maybe they have laws that are against that.
True, and they don't want to be the head rots from the fish down. If the government pays it, then why wouldn't businesses and other entities pay in that country. It's interesting because they're kind of saying in the article that this is, and I don't want to get too much into geopolitics here, but geopolitics is playing into our businesses and our industry. So I think it is important because, it is something that we're concerned about as cyber defenders, and businesses should start to be concerned about this stuff. Gone are the days where these big, like, worldly events don't affect your daily lives. I have friends that say, "Why do you care who's president of the United States? It doesn't affect your everyday life." Well, things like this start to affect your everyday life, right? So we have Conti and the researchers that have information on this group are basically saying that they've uncovered chats, internal leaked chats from these groups, basically saying that they're very supportive of the Russian president and that they are going to continue these attacks against people who speak out and are against what's happening over there in Russia and Ukraine. So don't want to spend too much time on that. I think it was important to mention, though, that this attack is definitely being attributed to the fact that Costa Rica has come out in support of Ukraine. So,
but it does bring up the point too that if they're that closely tied with Russia, is this considered a nation state attack by insurance providers? So if you as a business in the United States get hit by Conti, are you going to get a payout even if you have a good insurance policy?
Right. It is important to note that the insurance companies cannot make that determination. It has to be done by the government. The federal government would have to come out and say that Conti is a state-sponsored actor, which is, I fully believe I'm totally in line with you on this, Ryan, because I think that's why they put the $15 million bounty out, because I think they're interested to know, are these just regular dudes like, computer guys, hackers, private citizens of Russia, or are these like military? And I think the belief here is, my personal opinion is, I believe there's some people in our government who believe that this is the Russian military, or at least they're getting helped tremendously by the Russian military. So
they've definitely had a history of being a little bit lax on groups operating within their borders. And yeah, that's the suspicion, is they're lax. You give us a little bit and we'll let you operate.
Yeah, and then we're going to move into our next one. I don't know. Does anyone want to chime in? Andre, you didn't talk much about this attack over in Costa Rica. I know we were talking and joking around last night about opening an office there. Do you have any insight on this before we move on?
Yeah, I mean, just the sad part is we're again talking about the 610 gigabytes of information and the fallout. People's the employees' information. You're going to have employees that can't get paid. If we see here in the States that we don't have a good backup system for when the Corona situation happened, just imagine Costa Rica, where now these people probably are not getting paid. And it's just sad because the fallout's going to be a long time for them to recover.
It is. So now we have, the next one up that we're going to talk about is an active cyber attack. And the other thing too, I guess I want to mention about the last article, and Randy mentioned it when he was talking about it, that this happened back in April. And that's another trend I'm starting to see, is that a lot of these disclosures are coming out a month, 6 weeks from when they actually happened. And that's kind of a new trend, in my opinion. We normally hear about these things a lot quicker because customers, employees, somebody runs out to social media and kind of lets the cat out of the bag that there's something going on here or there. I'm not saying it's happening in every case, but I'm seeing it happen more frequently. Again, and I think that goes to better incident response, insurance companies getting involved with lawyers, breach coaches, which are lawyers, and them going out and saying, make sure you don't say anything. Tell your employees not to be going out there and going on social media and saying things or posting things. And I think that that's a result of that. Do you guys agree, or do you guys see it a different way?
100%. I was going to say the same thing as you started that comment.
So now we got the Oregon Secretary of State, a cyber attack prompts security response by Oregon Secretary of State. And what's going on here, just real quick, it's an attack on a campaign finance firm that prompted the Oregon Elections Division to require that 1,100 users of the state's online campaign contribution reporting system changed their passwords. So basically, people who use the system to log in and say, hey, we got a donation from this group to our campaign, you know, I'm just going to go right in. Let me just pull it right up because I can't stand this stuff. But
I know Randy just saw the line that I was going to. Yeah, there you go.
I don't know who wants to start talking, but go ahead.
My bullcrap meter's going through the roof, man, because there's a ransomware on their system. That means that whoever did the ransomware had admin access or root access, or who knows, it's at least admin access. And to just say, oh, no big deal, go change your passwords, like you've got something bad in your system, and just changing the passwords isn't gonna fix it. And I know what Ryan's thinking, because we always talk about this. What do they say first time they announce it?
Yep.
No big deal.
Version 1.0 of the story today.
Yep.
So, I think it's important to point out that the Oregon Election Division learned that their web hosting provider used by this system, the company's name is Optus Interactive. They were the ones actually that got the ransomware. And this, guys, like, just think about this. I mean, I'm not saying that this is going to happen, but think about where you have your things hosted, right? These companies can, through no fault of your own, these companies can be cyber attacked, and it could result in your data being compromised. This could happen. This could happen if you are, if your website's hosted there. You might have internal business applications that you're using on a web server that's hosted by somebody somewhere. It could be GoDaddy. It could be, Bluehost. I don't know. It could be any one of these hosting providers out here could have their infrastructure compromised, which results in your information being, either stolen or encrypted. And I think that it's important. I need to point it out because I think even more so than 5 years ago, companies are embracing the cloud. They're moving to the cloud. They're moving applications out of their office. This hybrid work environment that we now live in is really forcing companies to think about whether they should invest in more of their own infrastructure or just move things to the cloud. Companies like Microsoft are making this easier and easier to do, to accomplish, by basically breaking computing up into little pieces. So you only have to invest in, data storage, processing. They're basically breaking each little component up of computer systems into, services that you can now buy and pay for as you use them. Consumption-based pricing is what the model they've kind of gone to. And all of these companies are susceptible to this type of stuff that you're seeing. So as you move things to the cloud, it's very, very important to know that you can do everything humanly possible to protect your company's information. But there's a back end to this that you don't control, that you're putting the faith that these companies are doing the right thing, that they're backing this stuff up, that they're securing it. And as you can see with this Optus Interactive, that didn't happen. And again, it's just like whether you use a Windows computer or a Mac computer, it doesn't matter. All of these systems can be breached. They can have vulnerabilities. They can be attacked. And that's what I want people to be aware of. What do you guys want to add to what the heck's going on here with this stuff?
This is a huge blind spot for business owners.
Yep.
Even the most cybersecurity aware business owners that we talk to don't really think about the third-party vendors that they use and what they're storing and what their security procedures are. And you start asking them, and you just see their eyeballs light up like, oh my goodness, I haven't thought of that. So this is a huge blind spot for business owners that they need to be aware of.
Yeah, one of the things that we've been doing a lot in the last 6 months, 12 months, probably more so in the last 6 to 8 months, is really talking to our clients about doing these third-party assessments on these vendors that they work with. Well, look, my clients have to answer questions to bigger entities. Why shouldn't, mid-market companies and small businesses be asking the same questions to their partners? I think it's time. I think if you haven't been doing it, you really need to assess who you're doing business with, and if they are going to be a risk to your business, because we see it too often where a third party gets attacked and impacts a different business or a partner business in a very severe way.
Yeah. Also, too, I see where it says 1,100 users are being forced to change the password. That automatically tells me that there was no MFA. There's not the passwords were leaked or compromised, and they had no 2FA installed on the system.
Yeah, and this kind of attack is especially disconcerting because this is a group that takes political campaign donations. And we've already seen, like, with all the mess going up in Canada, you know, some of those donation sites were hacked and information was leaked, and, you know, governments knew things that should be private, and, you know, things that people did that should be private. Like, all that stuff is a big mess. And, you know, when it involves politics like this, there's a whole nother side of it, you know, that these people are giving in confidence. And, you know, may not want their information leaked out, which that's probably going to happen. Like we said a little bit ago, this is only week one, the nothing to see here week. So, you know, we don't know.
I guess in a way, a lot of this is public record. When you donate, that's public record. Like, that's, now you can do it under a PAC or under some kind of company where it doesn't name you individually. But at the same time, a lot of times there's bank account information. Like, I've seen public records for campaign donations where the check is literally copied and in the system. So that's out there. Plus, you know, like you said, you know, maybe you don't want it. Look, you got to go digging for this stuff. It's not like, you know, you donate to somebody and it's in the front page of the newspaper. Like, you really got to go digging for this stuff. And, you know, I know people who kind of do investigative work around political donations, especially here in New Jersey, and they spend a lot of time and effort trying to correlate, you know, these different PACs and organizations. So yes, it's public information, but it's not like you're going to easily go in somewhere and see, like, you know, Joe Smith donated millions of dollars to, you know, these different politicians. It's not that simple. And things like this make it easy for people to figure out what their political affiliations are, who they might be supporting. Maybe, you know, there's a lot of things you can draw from political donations. But again, there's no excuse here. You shouldn't minimize the fact that this might be public information. You shouldn't minimize the fact that your systems were breached and that data was, you know, potentially stolen and exfiltrated. And I think that's the important point here.
Well, and to your point too, they may have some information that they shouldn't have purely as a result. I mean, this is the Secretary of State, but think about the campaigns that are reporting stuff to them. They're largely volunteer driven, right? So you can't control what those volunteers are maybe sending over that they shouldn't be. And now all of a sudden that's in your database.
Yep. So moving right along, attack number 3 currently underway. We have Lincoln College. They almost made it to 160, but they have to close now after 100. Not temporarily, they're closing permanently after 157 years due to a ransomware attack. So this is a college in Illinois, you know, I guess the important thing for me here is, and my takeaway from this is we talked about it a little bit. Andre pointed at that, you know, he said this is like a fledgling college. They were pretty much on the ropes anyway. And I said to Andre, I said, well, there's a lot of businesses out there that are in that position, that they're like literally paycheck to paycheck, or they're barely making payroll. And if that's your business, you know, you're going to learn from this Lincoln College. Like, if you're on the ropes and you're barely making it as a business and you get hit with one of these attacks, that's basically your knockout punch. And that's kind of what I took away from reading this article. So, Andre, you brought this one to everybody's attention. So why don't you start off and tell us your thoughts on this one?
Yeah, so this school, they survived the 1912 major fire, the Spanish flu, the Great Depression, world wars. I mean, this college has gone through so much, and it does so much in the community. It's actually a historical Black college.
Oh,
So
okay.
yeah, so it's just unfortunate. It probably seems that with the low enrollments, less budget, maybe morale was low, and here you have one of these ransomware groups just nail on the coffin, and they've been suffering since December. And according to the article, they just have not been able to recover. And we talk about that all the time. It's not just, you getting the ransomware and the next day you just move on or something like
Right.
that. You literally have to start building again. And when you have transcripts, student information, possible lawsuits, all of these things just on you, and then the reputation of the college, it's already low enrollment. And now to start, issuing letters that, your information may have been compromised, it was just, the last thing they needed.
Yep. And so they were and the interesting details of this that I found was that I think they were hit in December of 2021, which hindered their ability to admit people into the school. Right. So now they can't take income. Right. Their income was basically hamstringed, their ability to get it or collect it and process it. And then they didn't know what was going to happen for fall of this year. So because they couldn't admit people, they had no idea what their revenue was going to be. And you can't run a college without knowing what your revenue is going to be 9-12 months in advance. Basically, all of their systems for recruitment, retention, fundraising were inoperable. So that's their business, right? Completely done. And then they got restored just in March of 2022. So it took them 4 months to get back up and running, to the point where they could start, running stuff, projecting things out. And they just looked around and they said, we're just not going to be able to pull this together to stay open. They're not going to be able to pay their bills. And that's what I took away from this. So Randy,
I bet you there was also a component, though, of being able to protect themselves afterwards. I mean, it's likely, looking at the details, that they didn't have any cybersecurity in the first place. So, not only do they have to recover and then fix those problems, but they have to have the budget to protect themselves going forward as well.
Yeah, I think that's a thing that we don't talk about enough on the show, guys, is the second time and how often it happens, and these cyber criminals are ruthless because, I mean, I know it happened to the company that owns Jack Daniels. They had a $2 million ransom. They're like, we're not going to pay it. They just pulled everything from a backup. They got the same system set back up and running. 2 weeks later, they get hit again, and the ransom's now $4 million.
Wow.
Right? These guys are ruthless, and this continues to happen in all these attacks where you might get the wrong advice from a cybersecurity professional or an IT professional who tells you, oh, we can just restore from backup. So if those backups were vulnerable or they're bringing the same vulnerability that they attacked the first time back into play, more than likely they're going to just be waiting for you, and you're going to get hit again. Anything else you guys want to add on this one?
Yeah, I did. A couple of statistics.
Yep.
I mean, first off, this is really tragic. There's a finite number of predominantly Black colleges, and I would really love to see some business leaders, if there's any way at all to resuscitate this college, would be worth the effort. But that's a whole nother series, or a whole nother discussion. But the statistic that I wanted to mention is 60% of all businesses, small and medium businesses that suffer a ransomware attack, go out of business within 6 months. And this, sadly and truly heartbreakingly, this is a perfect example of that. You already mentioned it, Brian. If your business is paycheck to paycheck, especially, you've got to get out from that cycle. You've got to build margin financially. That's a whole nother discussion also. And then you have to mitigate your risk. You have to protect your business from these kind of ransomware attacks, because that's over half. 60% is over half. And that's heartbreaking to me. I love small and medium businesses. They're the backbone of our economy. And to think that 60% of them are going to go out of business within 6 months because of a ransomware attack is insane.
But that's the first step is they need to know that, right?
What's that?
That's the first step is realizing that. If they realize that they're already paycheck to paycheck, they need to connect the dots and know they are one ransomware attack away from going out of business.
Yes.
Yep. So then we got we got three more, guys. Man, it's taking a while.
Okay.
All right. So Omnicell, healthcare provider of medication management and adherence tools for health systems and pharmacies, determined that a ransomware attack had affected some of its services, products, and internal systems. And unfortunately, this is a publicly traded company, so you have to file an SEC filing within, I think it's 6 days now. Like, it's really getting tough out there for publicly traded companies. If you're a publicly traded company and you're listening to the show, you now have to have a readout to your board during your quarterly board meetings on cybersecurity, and you must submit that readout in your K8 or K whatever filing, K10, I forget what it is. But you are now going to be required by the SEC to submit your cybersecurity readout that a cybersecurity professional gave to your board, because now the boards are going to start being held responsible for cybersecurity, and I applaud that. So, what do you guys think about this? There's not a lot of meat here for us to work with here, but again, another software provider for medical records, medical management. Got to imagine there's PHI in here, third party that gives this to hospital systems and pharmacies. They've yet to determine the extent of the attack or whether the incident would have a material effect on financial results. Well, I can tell you that that's just, we know the answer or whether that's going to change. So what are you thinking here, Randy?
I'm thinking what you pretty much said. I'm shaking my head because, excuse me, it goes back. It really ties into what we've already said about cloud-based. You're just taking your server out of your medical office and you're giving it to someone else to run. And so if you're using Omnicell, which, that's one of the things, they provide medication management. So there's companies that are using it. And then once again, like the other thing that we mentioned a little while ago, you've put that trust into someone else and then now they're hacked. And, first run on these things is they don't tell us a whole lot of information. We don't know, customer info, medical info, like all that stuff is worth so much money on the dark web.
Just in case anyone's never seen what one of these things look like, this is the actual filing that you have to file to the United States government, to the SEC. This is a Form 10Q, and it's the quarterly report pursuant to Section 13 or 15 of the Security Exchange Act of 1934. And basically that they are disclosing the attack in this document. So this is what all publicly traded companies need to do now. And I applaud it because at least somebody's holding them accountable and they're not able to sweep this under the rug like they have been in the past.
But the interesting thing is it wasn't the PII that was starting to put things over the edge. It was the financial results that they're concerned with. Once it starts hitting people in the pocketbook, investors, loan providers, things like that, that's when things are really going to start kicking into gear as far as holding these companies accountable and making sure that they're doing what they need to do.
And this is blowing my mind, guys. We're going to move on to the next one here. And like the amount of attacks in the food agriculture industry over the last year has been, not to mention the other things that are going on. But this AGCO, which is like a John Deere rival, they create and manufacture tractors and farming equipment. Fell victim to a ransomware attack. So, Andre, you want to head up this one? Who's got this one? Me? So I mean, they're resuming full operations right now, but they think it's going to affect. This is what the article says. The company is currently investigating the extended attack, but expects business operations would be adversely affected for at least several days. I think it's going to be more than that, as we've shown with these previous ransomware attacks. It's not a super familiar name, but they are one of the biggest manufacturers out there. They're not as big as John Deere, but if you guys remember, John Deere was hit too.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. This is disturbing because of all of the hits that have been happening on the supply chain anyway. You know,
to the food supply chain. I mean, it's wild.
It is. And, you know, like not having tractors, that literally, you know, it may not affect tomorrow, it may not affect the next day, but that's going to have some kind of impact somewhere on something. And there's already a multiple of these things. So it's pretty disturbing attack.
Yeah, because you have, right, we see multiple points of leverage by these cyber criminals when they do these things. It's either that they're coming after you to put you down, you know, to put you so you can't sell tractors, you can't admit people into your college, right? Or they're stealing really juicy information, really important information, election filings, right? Data on people, or their electronic health records in the last example. So it's either they're going after data because they know they can sell it, they know they can commit fraud with it down the road against somebody else, or they're going after your operations and they're crippling your operations so you can no longer sell and make money and deliver your products into the supply chain and make money. So that's literally the two things that we're seeing the most of, and how these ransomware guys get paid and when they choose a target, right? Because there are definitely times that advanced persistent threat groups or somebody gets into a network and the ransomware group decides there's no leverage here. There's nothing we can really get here, right? So they don't, maybe like a Conti goes and says, here, go to this ransomware group because they're more small time, right? And they work with a smaller group to attack a less favorable target, so to speak. This is stuff that's really happening out there, folks. So just, be aware of it. Understand that, if you make money and they have a way to hit your operations, you're in a lot of trouble. If you have data, private information that should be protected, you're in trouble. These are the two ways that we see the big guys make money. You might get ransomware and not have these things. If they don't get to your operations and if they just encrypt some, files that are useless, you're probably not going to be dealing with these big guys. You're probably going to be dealing with small time who it's just more of a nuisance than anything. Andre, what'd you pull out of this AGCO attack?
I mean, I would say what happened to the 16 critical infrastructure list that, Biden said not to touch?
Boom. I have no idea. I never even thought it was a real thing anyway. So
food was on it.
What?
That was just to pacify us for that point in time.
Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah.
Like, this is a perfect example where they should find out who it is, and once they know who it is, go like full blast on them, because it's literally an attack on our.
And the other thing that we need to point out is, like, there was in the article, it points out that there was a French company called Massey Ferguson that does the same exact thing as this company, and they were hit last week. They're out of France and north of Paris. Cyber criminals have their sights set on the food industry. They are trying to disrupt food from getting to the supermarkets and the tables of the people in the world, right? Because basically we are in a world economy at this point. It's just unbelievable. How bad this is getting. The fact that I could just do a simple Google search this morning and pull up 5 active ransomware attacks that are currently in the news, which I said to you guys, this is the most I've ever seen. Right. And like I said, like, we know that this is just scratching the surface for what's really going on out there. So if you see currently 5 active ones in the news that are you can easily pull them up, Imagine what's going on in the world where they're not reporting this stuff. It's not making the news, right? I would say pay attention to your local news outlets, because a lot of times it just ends up there, right? Where it doesn't make it out of like your local town's newspaper. I saw a cyber attack article in a local town's newspaper because I was like, I'm curious to know why this particular cyber attack that I know about didn't make it out into the news. Like, why aren't people talking about this? In a way, it was critical infrastructure, Andre. And it did come out. It did not say anything about a ransomware attack. It just mentioned a cyber attack. And it was in, and I don't even know if it made it to print. It was in a local newspapers on a story online. And it was not very detailed. It was very quick, like kind of like, hey, they just called a reporter. Can you get something out? Because we have to disclose this publicly. And that checks the box for that. And, you know, people should pay attention to maybe their online local newspaper and search it for things like cyber attack and ransomware and find out that, you know, there might be some local businesses in your area that have dealt with this kind of stuff, or your own local government. So just a heads up there. Anything else you guys want to add before we move on?
No.
Good. So the next one we're going to bring up here, guys, is it our last one? No, we got one. No, we got our last one here. So good. So we're going to wrap up here. Andre, you brought this one to the table. I don't know much about it, so I'm going to lean on you for this because I didn't read it too much. But we got this U.S. auto insurer, Elephant Insurance, rocked by a cyber attack. Who's Elephant Insurance, and what happened here?
Yeah, so they're a large insurance company. I actually seen them before when we were trying to get a policy, because I Googled their logo and I was like, oh, okay, yeah, I remember them. And it's funny because if you guys remember, I would say, like, you know, that January, February time when we were like looking for articles, we were like, man, we have nothing to talk about. And here it is 2-3 months later, and we're kind of now seeing all of these things pop up, the calm before the storm. But essentially, this company, same thing. They are saying that between March 26th and April the 10th, that they realized that there was some suspicious activities going on, and now they have released that they have the cyber attack that's going on.
Yep. So I just look at that as a cyber defender, and I go, I wonder what the suspicious activity was, right? Because we can detect suspicious activity a lot of different ways. Was it that they had the right tools in place and they were actually, you know, doing kind of what I say what we would do, or did somebody just notice like some files being changed, like very obvious like stuff, like things were moving around in front of them, you know, files were being renamed, or, you know, a certain file might have been accessed and the person was like, well, I didn't access that file, you know, I haven't accessed that file in months, and the modified, you know, property, the date changed. You know, who the heck knows what the suspicious activity is? But again, here's a great example of not ransomware, but somebody just getting in the network and perusing around and spying, which I mentioned last week, that the data is the new gold, right? Yep. You got to protect your data, because it's not always about ransomware these days. These guys are very good at just taking your data and then threatening you with that to release it. So,
but also too, remember, this is an insurance company, so now they have your policies. They know how much the limits are. So this is gold for them. Now they just have to go after their book of business and say, hey, you know, you have a $2 million policy, we'll cut your deal and give us $1.5 million, and let's move on.
They can also use that personal information for targeted phishing attacks, other targeted attacks. I mean, like y'all both said, this data from a company like this especially is pure gold, you know, where they may not even ever ask for a ransomware. Right. You know, they might just take the data and just use that.
And just sitting on the network and not revealing themselves and just sitting there stealing information is perfectly okay with these cyber criminals. It's just as lucrative as a ransomware hit. Right. The luck, I guess I would say that the Elephant Insurance was lucky that when they did detect this, that the cyber criminals didn't detect that they were detected and then decide to deploy ransomware. Because that's what we usually see, is that when a cyber criminal is in your network and they're just kind of lurking around and they think that they've been caught, they will quickly try to deploy ransomware. So I just want to mention Elephant Insurance is a subsidiary of the Admiral Group, which I am familiar with Admiral Insurance. I never heard of Elephant until today. So, but Admiral is I'm sure more people are familiar with Admiral Insurance than Elephant. So if you're, if you're a customer of Admiral, Elephant Insurance seems to be a subsidiary. Hopefully those systems are separate and segregated. Guess we'll find out. All right, guys. So Ryan had to drop off. We knew that. That's why he's kind of not here anymore. If anybody was wondering, it's not a big deal. Anything you guys want to add before we wrap it up? Cool.
A lot of stuff out there.
Yeah, man. Keep yourself protected. If you need help, obviously you can reach out to any of our 4 companies to get help with this stuff, folks. We're here to help. We're here to make sure that you don't become a victim and that you don't end up in the news. Just do something. I mean, even if you don't work with professionals like us, start doing things. Go watch our previous podcast. We kind of lay it all out, all the things you need to start doing. It's not one thing. It's not 2 things. You need to develop your layered approach for your company. Evaluate your critical assets, figure out how you're going to protect them, and start protecting them today. So we'll see you in the next episode. Take care.